Hey there, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I hope you are having a good week. My name is Jenn Walker Wall. I'm the founder of Work Wonders Careers, and I'm here today to discuss the very important topic of is perfectionism derailing your job search? If you're new here, welcome. I pop on once or twice a month to offer quick little chats and conversations on topics and issues that might be critical to your job search and career. If you'd like to learn more about the work that we do, feel free to check us out at workwonderscareers.com. And of course, if you are watching the replay, if you are a returning viewer, hello to you as well. Thank you so much for being here and joining us again. I really appreciate your time and trust in this process. If you're here, feel free to say hello. I have had terrible internet all day long, and I'm feeling a little extra anxious about whether I'm going to make it through today's chat. I'm glad this is a relatively short and to the point presentation today. And I think it's really important for a variety of reasons, which I will dive into shortly. One thing before we get started that I did want to remind people is that we have a job search accelerator starting April 18th, and our early bird ends on Friday. So if you want to learn more about that, definitely visit us online at workwonderscareers.com, and you can learn more about our 4-week job search accelerator. And if you're interested, please definitely join us and grab that early bird discount so that you get the best value here. If you have questions, if you're watching the replay, feel free to drop questions and tag me after today's presentation. If you're here, feel free to say hello and add any questions you may have as we go. I can always come back and respond to questions if we're not here at the same time, so feel free to take advantage of that. While I have been leading Work Wonders for almost 8 years now, prior to that, I worked in hiring in an academic research context primarily. I did a few other things too, but that's really where I spent a bulk of my time. And the work that we've done since I started this business has really been about my experience hiring and what I learned. So we really get in the weeds with our clients and help them to communicate their qualifications and communicate it effectively across the job search process. So helping them cultivate resumes that actually get interviews and interviews that help move them forward in the process. I spend a lot of time educating clients on like what happens behind the scene, like why haven't you heard back yet? What could be happening? What might be going on that you may not be privy to if you haven't spent a lot of time in the hiring space. We spend a lot of time helping people understand why networking is important, how it can sort of help kind of grease the wheels in your job search. And all of that to say, that a lot of what, hey there, thanks for watching. So all of this to say is that what we share with our clients is largely based on our experience in the hiring space. And the reason today's topic is a little bit different is that today's chat is really about what we've learned working with our clients. Because what I've learned over the years is that I can have the best resume strategies. I can have, really great tactics for people to engage in, but actually shortening that distance from like where they are to taking action is also a huge part of our job. And so some of these client challenges that go well beyond job search and resume tactics and strategies include things like managing time, making decisions, which can be very overwhelming and scary, lacking confidence in your ability and your experience or to make a pivot, feeling awkward or like too self-promotional or salesy to actually ask for help, and just good old like procrastination here, which I think we're all probably pretty familiar with. So our job isn't really just about job search strategy, although we love that. It's really about helping people kind of bridge the gap from how they're behaving now to how they'll want to behave in order to bring their job search into fruition. So the need to be strategic and also to change behaviors is really at the basis of a lot of the work that we do with our clients and the framework that we use to help them move through the process. So when new clients come our way, they are often emailing themselves jobs, but never actually applying. You might find jobs you're excited about and actually be too terrified to submit your application. You might have people in your network who've offered to be helpful, but you're not feeling ready enough to actually speak to them. Maybe your resume is not in good shape or you're not sure what you want. So this keeps people from making progress and moving forward. So even when you have the right strategy, implementing it is just like, as I always say, a whole other beast. Knowing the thing and doing the thing, two totally different things. And I'm not here to oversimplify what keeps people from making that progress and taking that action, but I am here to offer a few thoughts on how you can sort of shift your thinking, and also some like actual experiments that you can try to get things going for you. So let me start with kind of 3 shifts that I encourage our clients to make, so that they can actually engage with their job search process, and not just kind of have it be, up in their heads as an idea. So the first thing I encourage people to do might sound a little counterintuitive, and that is lowering the bar on your expectations. So hear me out on this. If you want a new job, if you want new opportunities, and you are not actively applying for those opportunities or connecting with people who might have insight into potential opportunities, you don't have a job search. You have a job browse. My friend Shannon came up with this term when I was giving a workshop to her people. So that is a job browse, not a job search. And job offers rarely come from a job browse. So I want you to keep that in mind. There's a good chance that you're assuming you're not ready, that you don't know enough, that getting started will take too much time, that your efforts will not pay off. And you're setting the bar so high at this initial entry point that just getting started feels impossible. So by lowering the bar, we're trying to figure out what is the easiest single thing that we could do. And the way we've kind of operationalized this for our clients is to use milestones. So instead of focusing on the job offer as the goal, we try to figure out what is the work that is required to get to that point. So we have a milestone guide that clients can work through to make sure that they're on the right track and can assess their progress before they're at the point where they can reasonably expect to have a job offer in hand. So some examples for milestones would be generating some clarity over target roles and priorities for your job search. Not an absolute definitive list of every role you might apply for, but close enough so you can identify some themes, operationalize some search terms, and like be clear about what is a red flag versus like what's really compelling to you. Having job search assets that generate interest for you. So having resumes, having LinkedIn, a LinkedIn profile, right? Like having these, be targeted towards your, target roles, up to date, optimized, and really working for you. So not the kind of resume that you submit over and over again and just hear crickets about. And applying for jobs or connecting with people consistently. So these are just 3 ways that you can really start, and you should probably start first with getting clear on your target roles. And by focusing on those milestones, we are setting up ourselves to be engaging in the work that ultimately results in offers, but in the short term gives us a win, right? Like we get clearer about our goals, we get better about our resume and LinkedIn, we start setting better habits about how we're engaging in this work. And that all comes from like giving ourselves permission to just lower our expectations a little bit. All of these milestones, or at least most of them, have to happen before we get a job offer in hand. So we're trying to help clients focus on the parts of this process that they can actually control. You don't have to bite off more than you can chew here. You don't need to be certain. You don't have to be definitive in your approach. You can build that clarity as you engage in these milestones or in these smaller steps. And I really encourage people to start that way. The second kind of shift I want people to make is that the best kind of resume is a submitted resume. Now, I could talk all day about resumes and resume strategy, and sometimes I do just that. But I really truly believe that most people, most professionals who are, leveraging their resume, just don't harness the power that their resume can really have. And helping people to do that is something that I absolutely love. But here's something that I also want you to hear. Every once in a while, a client will be like in progress with their resume, and a client will be like, oh, I've got this person who wants to see my resume. What should I do? Should I hold off? Or should I send them the one I have, even though, it's not great? And 100% of the time I say, send them what you have, because the best kind of resume is a submitted resume. We could work on the perfect resume all day long, but if you're not actually using it, it's not going to be advantageous. And so submitting the resume that you have stands way more of a chance of doing something for you than not sort of submitting anything at all. So when you're, not sure what to do, or your resume needs some work, but there's a deadline you're up against, set a timer for 20 minutes. Do the best you can in the 20 minutes to make sure it's tailored, make sure it's up to date, make sure it's conveying your impact and responsibilities appropriately, and then hit submit. There's something here about just taking action, being consistent, and, obviously, not letting perfectionism get the best of us. We can always revise your resume. We can always tell people, if we're sharing our resume with our network, look, here's the draft I'm currently working with. Next week, I'll have an updated one. Here's for now. So when in doubt, if it's something you're interested in, please submit. Don't miss out because your resume is not perfect. Stranger things have happened. Resumes generating traction for people. I think we can all agree on that at this point in time. Number 3, so this is the final mindset shift, and I'm going to get into some experiments you can try to navigate perfectionism in your job search. I want you to stop thinking about time as your enemy and start thinking about time as a really critical in your job search process. Now, if you are currently in a job where you are like not feeling safe, then this message is not for you. Please honor your priorities in your job search. But so many of my clients either are in a position to take a break from work, shift down into like part-time freelance consulting, or they're in a job that they'd like to move on from, but that isn't exactly them totally miserable, in the meantime. And so this is an invitation to stop thinking about time as something that you're running up against, and really start thinking about, how can I use my time? How can I, give time sort of a job to do in this process? I always tell my clients that like time is an ingredient. It's like the baking powder. You can absolutely job search without it, but the results will reflect that. People come to us to help generate opportunities that feel aligned, that they're enthusiastic about, that make sense for them given their goals. And that kind of job search, most of the time, doesn't happen overnight. It requires conversations. It requires experimentation. It sometimes requires saying no to things. So that all is going to require a timeline. And I think your search will be much more enjoyable, frankly, if you just make peace with that a little bit right now. If you can renegotiate your relationship with time and urgency, it can be a real game changer. I see a lot of clients who take part-time work, freelance work, contracting work, so that they can, kind of maybe decompress from whatever stressful situation they were in, and make time and prioritize landing something that's aligned rather than something they can generate quickly. So if you're in a position to do that, please consider it, because I think it can really set you up for some really great results. Now let's talk about working through perfectionism. I have a couple of very specific suggestions here about how you can sort of invite imperfectionism into your job search. One of my favorite strategies, I was just talking about this over on LinkedIn, is to pick a low stakes job to update and optimize your resume for. Clients can get very nervous about submitting an application job that's like a 10 out of 10. They're really. So what if, instead of starting your job there, you started your job search with just a job that was a 6 or a 7 out of 10, just to kind of go through the motions and do the work of making sure that resume is up to date, making sure, you have a LinkedIn presence that more or less kind of reinforces your qualifications for that kind of job, and hitting submit in a low stakes way. I will say lately, we've actually had a lot of people get interviews for these low stakes jobs. So it can also be an opportunity to even start interviewing and getting a little practice, which a lot of our clients appreciate. And on top of that, it can even be a pretty compelling opportunity once you actually get to kind of see behind the job posting and meet the people involved. So I love it when clients are like, I'm not finding any jobs that are a 10 out of 10 this week. Great. Find something that's a 6 or a 7, go through the process in a way that's low stakes, allows you to sort of, do the work that you need to do ultimately, but in a way that doesn't feel particularly stressful. Another exercise that I sometimes encourage clients to experiment with is to make rejection the goal. So a lot of times people resist, putting themselves in a situation where they're going to be rejected, which I can completely appreciate. But there's almost no job seeker gets out of this process without a little rejection and a little ghosting. So one thing you can do is start making a goal to say, get 10 rejections. And the work that you'd have to do, that's at least 10 applications out there. And a lot of times people do get interviews, and sometimes people get offers as a result of these first 10 applications. So I want you to really think about that, because we can sort of like befriend the process and make the worst fear our goal, and still make really helpful progress towards our end goal of landing a job that's really aligned with what we want. The third piece here, why iterating is key, and all job searching is imperfect. When we are looking for a job, we have a lot of questions, and the goal of the job search isn't just to find a job. It's to help us flesh out the answers to our questions. What do I want next? What are my priorities? What is the cost benefit of any given offer or opportunity in front of us? We have to sort of engage in the process to know exactly what we want, rather than thinking we know everything up front. The trick is to have a job search process that allows us to collect information along the way by creating opportunities to connect and to learn from recruiters, from hiring managers, from potential teammates, to cold contacts, to former contacts, and try to answer our questions as we go. So if you can make sure that you're documenting your work, figuring out what questions you need to ask, capturing that, and making decisions and constantly reevaluating your priorities, you'll learn a lot in this process. That's really what this process can and should be designed to do too, not just to result in an offer, but to result in better clarity for your own goals, your own strengths, and your own priorities. So shifting your relationship and your behavior to the work itself of job searching can really help you go from feeling overwhelmed to focused, from isolated to supported and engaged with other people, which is always what we want. I always say interaction is where opportunity comes from. And from hearing crickets to getting interviews and getting offers, because you'll really be able to iterate over time. So that's my quick pitch for imperfectionism in the job search process. Thank you for paying attention, joining me, and hopping into today's quick talk. I think my internet made it the whole way through, so that's very exciting. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them here in the chat. If you're interested in joining us for our April Accelerator, you can visit us at workwonderscareers.com. Otherwise, I hope you have a really good rest of your week, and I hope there's a nugget or two here that you can implement quickly to help you turn your job search around. All right, have a great one. I'll talk to you soon.